I'm not sure yet. Okay. Think, are we there yet? Hang on, let me see. Yep, we're there. Hi, everybody. It's Sunday again, January 18th, and welcome to Vapor's Worldview. And let's see a second. There we go. We're live. Say hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hi guys.
Of course, I've got Knock with me, Alex, Robin. Again, this is our that wonderful week summary of what's going on in the different things for activism and issues that are facing us. So feel free to chime in on the chat and let us know what you think. I'm going to turn it right over to Knock while I'm finishing everything else.
Well, um, we really haven't got a lot of content when it comes to local issues. We have some outstanding requests for vapors to write letters to engage with their politicians. We'd like to see a lot of letters coming from you guys in response to these requests, because this is the only way we're going to find out who our allies are and who our enemies are. I think Alex knows more about what's going on in New Orleans than I do, so Alex can talk about New Orleans.
Well, like I told you guys earlier, I had a brief conversation with someone on the ground in New Orleans this afternoon. I think they probably just got done wrapping up a meeting. It sounded like from a retailers association. And they're working really hard to get amendments into the smoking law. It doesn't sound terribly successful. I'm getting kind of mixed messages about the exemption for vape shops. There's kind of a conflict with the existing. There's a grandfather date on cigar bars, which is similar to what we have in New Jersey. No new cigar bar licenses have been created in New Jersey since 2004, and I think the date in New Orleans is something like 2006, maybe. So the city council is mulling over. They're interested in exempting vape shops or vapor bars, which I guess would kind of be more like a cigar. I don't know how you make that distinction between a vape shop with a kind of a lounge area and just a vapor bar. I'm not exactly sure all the details on that, but it sounds like they're interested in it, but they don't want to lose the grandfather date. So they're making some, I don't know if headway is the right word, but there are people working in New Orleans to get things done, but it's kind of down to the wire. So yeah, it's kind of a difficult situation down there. And then of course they've got the body parts orgs that I think are threatening to withhold not funding, but convention money if their smoking law isn't strong enough, which is particularly awful. So that's New Orleans, and I can't remember what I keep wanting to say that their next city council meeting is on the 26th, but I don't think that's right. Is it the 22nd?
I was thinking the 22nd.
Okay, so yeah, they're days away from those potentially coming to a vote. We have our call to action up, and that is, primarily for consumers. So if you live anywhere in the state of Louisiana, you can participate in that, and that is assuming that, New Orleans is a big city. A lot of people visit there. If you're a Louisiana resident, please take a second to send an email to the city council encouraging them to treat electronic cigarettes absolutely differently than smoking.
Mm-hmm. We have some articles that we posted in the Facebook today, it looks like there's a couple places we don't have any standard or any concrete information on, but a place in Massachusetts, Leverett, Massachusetts, the health board is pushing for some bans, and there's a couple other things going on. Rehoboth Beach is instituting their public ban as of yesterday or Friday, so that's already in place. I don't even think they had anything. I think they just went through and added it, and passed it. Lots of not fun stuff.
That's Delaware, right?
Yeah.
That's,
Kansas, there's some issues coming in Kansas, but again, like I said, no concrete information. Just some news articles that we posted. And we spoke a lot. This is not a local issue, but we spoke a lot on the radio show about Michigan and the veto of their common sense age restriction by the governor.
Yeah, and Snyder on that, he had a lot of people in his ear from the body parts groups, and he's had a long-term relationship with the anti-tobacco groups as he came into office. So we don't know that we'll get the same or similar results that they got in Missouri, because there was a lot of dissension with the Missouri legislators, a lot of bills that had gone through with that particular governor, where they had their eye on how he was vetoing bills and seeming to take his own course on stuff, and we really don't have that in Michigan. So it's a little bit harder to generate that passion for that veto in Michigan than
Yeah.
what they had in Missouri. Not to say that, if you're a Michigan resident, you should definitely contact your representatives, contact your senators, and say, hey, your job's lawmaking. This went through you guys, and it seemed like a good idea then. So why does one man get to make a decision when the entire House and Senate made the decision the other way? So,
It was the will of the people.
yep.
so am I understanding this correct? I get all the M states tend to get jumbled up in my head. Am I following this correctly that since the 648, is it 648 or 668, right?
668.
668. So since the governor vetoed it, does it go back to the legislature and they can override the veto?
Well, the way it's supposed to
They
happen
already do that.
is when a bill is vetoed, the procedure is it goes back to the legislature to notify the legislature that the veto is there, and there's a veto letter there that explains his reasoning for doing it. And there is a vote that will be held within 14 days of when they go back into session, which I think is this week, on whether or not they choose to override that veto or not. So that's how it works in Michigan. And it would take a
Well, it looks
two-thirds
like
vote.
Ocean City also has their smoking ban and vaping ban, obviously, already in place, and it will take effect on May 1st. And there's some question about enforcement. What are they going to do? So forth and so on. So that ought to be interesting, too. Because that's all along that, Rehoboth Beach is, East Coast, Ocean City, Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
Real close. Bethany Beach might be next.
And we see that domino effect frequently in an area where one area gets it and it seems to spread right to the next, and right to the next, and right to the next. And that's why we just can't stand by and let these things go down.
Well, I mean, at least Ocean City, Maryland got a 6-month delay before the bill kicks in. Rehoboth just kicked it in.
And we do still have some state, or is there any more local issues? Not.
Nope.
No. And we still have state issues that we're looking at. Um, we've seen, of course, Washington. There's been yet another revision to that bill that we saw earlier. So it's one of the problems with these pre-files and the pre-files and the draft bills is it's hard to hit a moving target because we don't know exactly what issues they're going to be dealing with. Um, and until the bill's actually filed, it's hard to come up with a real good defense. So you have to just become very alert and very aware of what's going on and talking with your legislatures and make sure that they understand where you stand on the position.
We've got 3 bills in New Mexico. We've got Montana just come up with a new one. So yeah, there are lots of issues on the state level, and there's varying levels of support for these things. But until we know who's for and who's against, we have to fight each and every one of these. We have to look at them like they're all going to pass if we don't do something.
Yeah. And we also have to worry about sometimes when a bill comes out when it's titled one thing but the content is something totally different. For example, we saw in some of the early stages in Washington the actual intent of the bill is supposedly to deal with um, youth prevention, but pieces of that draft bill went into all other areas, including cartage of merchandise, licensing restrictions, all these types of things. So that's one of the things we have to be very, very careful of.
Alex, do you know about this one in Massachusetts?
Let me see if I have it on the list.
It was just filed on the 15th.
No, I don't have anything for Massachusetts.
This is HD 1526. And it is a packaging issue, age restriction issue. I'm just glancing over it real quick. It looks like an old bill that they're reviving.
What was the bill number again?
HD 1526.
Wow, the Massachusetts legislature website is no help at all.
Of course not.
Lovely. This was actually posted on our Facebook by one of our members. So.
You got a link?
I do. I do have a link.
Links are awesome.
Let me throw this in the chat room.
Booyah. Another thing to maybe keep in mind is that every bill that mentions e-cigarettes is not necessarily going to be an issue. So,
right. Obviously, we have Indiana, Michigan, Indiana, Washington. I'm just scrolling through the most recent articles here.
We know there's some in Oregon right now.
There's 5, I think, in Oregon right now. We got a new one in Texas this last week, so I think that's 9 in Texas. If my count is off, forgive me.
And again, because none of these are at the point where they're actually going through committees yet or anything like that. This is where you need to be talking to your legislator in more general terms about, what this has done for your life. This is what, if you're a business owner, how this has impacted your income and your livelihood, things like that. So that's what you need to be talking to them about at this point. And the biggest thing is finding out what the current position is of your legislature. Before the
Well,
bills actually get there, they need to take their temperature and find out what they're thinking.
and that's kind of the purpose of those last two blog posts that I posted on our Facebook and our website, is to get people, you know, don't shove the science down their throats. Don't, get aggressive, but send them your stories and then ask them, how do you stand on this? What is your position? And then send me the email so that I know what to do with them.
Well, the other thing too is, and be willing that if they say they don't have a stance or they need more education or they need more information, that's an opportunity for you to step in and start educating. And if you don't have all that information, of course, you can take a look at all the things that we've got available at the Vaping Militia. You can look at there's tons of resources that are available through CASA. All of those things are great resources that you can use at that time to start a intelligent conversation, not an aggressive conversation, an intelligent conversation with the lawmakers and help them understand what's going on.
I'm, I'm almost to the point now where I know that there are quite a few legislators that are totally, against us, and that's fine, but we need to know who they are. And there are some that we may be able to reach, and we're not going to reach them through, call them fuckwides and
Nice.
telling them to get their heads out of their ass.
Probably not
The
a
only
probably not a
the,
good
o-
casual conversation starter there. True.
the only way we're going to get them on our side is to appeal to their sentiments. Tell them how it's helped you. Sadly, we have to do a little manipulation.
And I don't really consider it manipulation because at this point, if they don't know the issue and they're not aware of what's going on, finding out that they're at least open to the education. It's
Right.
not particularly manipulation at this point. Sometimes it's just about teaching them what's really going on. Because as I've said before, many people forget that those people that are sitting in the legislature of a state, um, that's not what they do professionally. Maybe that's not where they learn their life's experience. Some of them may not be lawyers. Some of them may not be doctors. Some of them may not be, uh, you know, people that were in finance. So who knows what they were in their former um, occupation.
Hmm.
So the education might help them. So is there anything else you got on the legislative front that we need to be very aware of at the moment, Knock?
Just pay attention to your state. Yeah. No.
And key thing is if you hear something and nobody's talking about it, let somebody know.
Hmm.
I know Alex is always excited to read a brand new email with a new issue somewhere.
Actually, this year we've been pretty well on top of it. Greg Conley, Julie, and I, pretty much have an ongoing conversation on Skype. And so we're pretty well on top of stuff. So far, I don't think we've actually gotten messages about stuff that we haven't seen. I can't remember. I'm sure we have. It's helpful. It is to see people paying attention to this. So by all means, even if you think we've got it, send us a message. Just try to not freak out about it. And
So are we instituting the don't panic rule?
Yeah, don't panic. Panic doesn't solve problems. But yeah, I'm a lot disappointed with the Massachusetts legislature homepage here. I just did all of these things that are posted in your Facebook page. I don't know, they should fall under some basic search terms like nicotine or tobacco, but there's nothing from their website for search pills. So that's not helpful at all.
No.
But Yeah, no, nothing terribly new from our house. We now have two bills in Indiana, one dealing with taxes, one dealing with an indoor use ban. We're going to be spending some time this week looking at licensing issues, which I know is something that I don't know if that was something that we wanted to talk about today or not, but there is a licensing bill in Indiana that we haven't issued a call to action for yet because we're still trying to figure out the best way to attack the issue. Um, got a couple of bills coming up in Maryland. I don't know about the second bill in Montana yet, but SB 66, I think, is having a hearing tomorrow. Um, there is a wonderful bill in New Jersey that would allow for the use of uh, vapor products in vapor shops. I spitefully say vapor products because New Jersey law refers to them as electronic smoking devices. Um, and I see a couple bills in New Mexico. We have 4 activities that people can participate in for New York. One big ass call to action for that. And there's another there's a licensing bill coming up in New York. Oregon, which I don't know what the hell happened to Oregon. Was Oregon ever cool? Or is it just that we all thought that like Portland was the hipster mecca and
I think
that,
I think the way it goes is Portland has its set of rules, and the rest of Oregon has a different set of rules.
I don't know what the hell is wrong with Oregon. Um, they are they're 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 on my shit list forever until they fix this. I don't know what happened last year. It seems like last year came and went, and I didn't even pay attention to what happened in Oregon. Some of these bills seem to be repeat offenders. But yeah, there's several of. Let me see, what do we got? 7. We've identified 7 bills in Oregon that just suck balls, and they range from indoor use to flavor bans, and they refer to these products as inhalant delivery systems, which anybody that I guess it's still a thing, but I was introduced to inhalants when I was in grade school, and that means things like huffing glue or spray paint or TV tuner. So
Stefan just
I
brought the
decided,
point that Greenlick's bill, the bill that Greenlick wrote, actually refers to nicotine as a controlled substance.
Yes, level 3. Schedule 3.
yeah, um,
That's not.
yeah.
That's not.
Greg had pointed that out. Apparently, this is the this is one of those repeat bills. I think he's introduced this one a couple of times, so I guess he's jockeying for some media coverage. I don't know. I don't know what a Schedule 3 drug in Oregon means, but yes, Stefan, that is pretty hilarious. Let's see.
We've
So
also
yeah,
got our
anyway,
good friends out in California, Dickinson again. That's a tongue-in-cheek good friend. Reintroducing another version of AB 1500, the bill that never went away last year.
Yeah.
Yep.
California's got their repeat bill too.
That's online sales.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Oregon's got one of those. And I would like to take this opportunity to say that there are certain things that we're going to see this year, likely, such as taxes and online sales, that as far as CASA and the millions of consumers in this country are concerned, are not bargaining chips. We are not interested in giving up on either of those in exchange for lighter treatment in other parts of whatever. So, in case anyone is watching who thinks that message applies to them, there you go.
And it's really not to use taxes as the gateway to a better position is a relatively foolish aspect for any corporation to go, because it's not the corporate dollar that pays that, it's the consumer dollar that pays that. So
Mm.
you know businesses need to be aware that any proposal to that you're going to say, oh, my customers won't mind paying a little extra money for a product so they can buy it, is is invariably a sellout to your customers. You're selling your customers out. So not a good idea from a professional standpoint. So that is, I mean, we didn't. It wasn't a very direct response on legislation. I mean, we've been talking about legislation through the first 2 weeks, and there's really no activity that we can define on yet. But again, at this point, what we really need people to be doing is talking to the legislatures, talking to find out what their position is, find out how they feel about this product, so that we can learn which ones we need to educate, which ones we need to educate very strongly with words of malice. No, I'm just teasing. But I mean, just we
You
don't
need to help
condone
us
any of
find our
that. But
targets for Twitter results.
yeah, but we do need to understand what's going on out there. And at this point, that is where the data that we're missing. The bills are there, the positions are not. So we need to know that.
Yeah, this year we're taking a slightly different. I think we're employing a different strategy. We're starting these things up earlier. I think last year we waited until we knew there was going to be a committee hearing. Actually, I wasn't a part of CASA this time last year, but I do remember traditionally in the past it's been sort of a wait and see kind of thing. But we're I think realizing that we're going to have so much, we already have so much to deal with this year. It's a good idea to get cracking on this early. And, really, the longer that these calls to action are up, the more people are likely to participate. And so that's more emails being sent, that's more word getting out that these are issues. And so, really, at the push this year, like what you guys said, it's to activate people sooner and get this conversation started now.
And many people don't realize that even as these bills are going through the legislature, if you've made one call or you've sent one email, you're not done. You're definitely not done, because these bills change as they go along. There's amendments that are put onto them, there's discussions that are brought forward, and every opportunity that this bill comes up again is another opportunity for your voice to be heard in some way. And the only way, and I think many people are under the illusion that the only time their voice is heard is when there's a call for testimony, on the Hill or in a hearing or on the floor. Whenever it is that they seem to think that's the only time their voice is heard, and we're really hobbling ourselves with that particular mentality, because we have the tools and we have the ability to basically on a daily method get our voice heard through one legislator or another legislator, or through a different response or perhaps a different interpretation of any information that comes along. I mean, if you see a news article that has something to do with this bill, it's an opportunity for you to engage the public officials again every time. So we really want people to look at how they're doing. I would go as far as to say, and I know that Alex will wince when I say this. The battle's lost when it goes to a vote.
I'm not wincing.
Good, because I so well believe that if we can beat these things in committee before they actually get to the floor, that is a much better situation than having to hope that someone isn't voting because their bill over here needs votes, or they're going to upset so and so by voting this way against their party. We need to get these bills shot and destroyed in committee before they even get to the floor.
I think we've seen. I guess we've seen examples of. Yeah, we've definitely seen bills that get tabled in committee. Um, Sometimes amendments get added. It's to soften them a bit, or they get a little closer to what we're interested in. But I'm sort of operating on the perspective that, you know, if it gets to committee, they're not going to bring this stuff to committee if they don't feel like they have the votes to get it out. So I'll one up you. When they're voting on it in committee, it's as if the battle is it's like 2/3 lost when it gets to committee.
I hear you.
So really, my relatively unrealistic goal this year is to just not have this stuff make it to committee.
The thing is when these guys write a bill, they already are circulating drafts of their bills to the people they caucus with, to people that they look at their voting records and say, well, they vote with us a lot, so we're going to give it to them, and they negotiate support for their bills as early as that.
Mm-hmm.
Knock,
So,
I want to bring an interesting point in exactly what you said there, so that people understand exactly what you said. When you say the people that vote, you mean they're not reading the bill; they're just voting because they voted with them before.
Well, when they're looking at who to circulate the draft bill to garner support, and they make phone calls and they get around and they make lists of everybody that they know are going to vote with them, well before the bill actually ever gets introduced. Because that guy that they're sending their bill to is sending them another bill for something completely different, and they're saying, hey, I'll vote for your bill if you vote for my bill.
So it's nothing to do with the education about what the bill content is. That's what we need to be targeting right there. That's where that story that you put in front of your legislator suddenly makes a difference. This feels about electronic cigarettes. Wait, my constituents are talking about electronic cigarettes. What's going on here?
So, yeah, we need to hit them before we know that there's a bill there.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand that in government, it may not always be about the content of the bill. And we need to make sure that, at least for our issue, that they are content aware.
Give me a minute here. We did our radio show the other night, and somebody asked a question in the chat, and at the time it seemed like a very uninformed question. But how many people that are watching the show, I mean, I'm pretty sure that most of the people that watch this show understand what happens, how a bill gets made into a law. Because the person asked a question and it seemed like they didn't understand how the legal process worked in the United States, how a law became a bill, or how a bill became a law, excuse me. And the way it works is a politician writes a draft, and they circulate it around. They say, okay, this is the bill that I'm writing. Their buddies might add or take away stuff. Once they get to the point where they feel like they can introduce it, they introduce it, and it gets assigned to a committee in the House or the Senate. Then they go through it. If it gets through committee, then it gets introduced to the floor, either the House or the Senate. Then it gets voted on. They talk about it a little bit. They might hold some hearings or whatever. They may have a public comment period, and then it gets voted on. And once it's voted on, it's still not a law until the governor signs it. And it works the same way on the national level pretty much, but maybe a little bit more detailed. So the governor, who is elected by the people, to sign bills that are responsibly authored by the House and the Senate to become laws. Gets has the unenviable task of saying, well, I like this or I don't like this. But in the end, the governor gets to decide. And this is one of the things we had happen last year in Missouri and in Michigan now. And I just didn't understand the person asked the question, why did the bill start in the House and Senate and not at the governor? The governors and the presidents don't make the laws. The House and the Senate, they make the laws.
Hmm. And a lot
So
of
I
people
mean
don't realize
that's a
that.
little Cliff Notes version, but remember your civics class, kids.
And there's some minor variations from state to state, but yeah, all of them are basically the same. I think the one step that got skipped was, say you start with a bill in the House, it goes through committee. There's one, two, maybe three readings in on the floor of the House or Assembly, whatever, gets voted on, and then it gets passed on to the Senate, and it goes through the same process in the Senate. So this is kind of what we saw in New York last year. Was there were bills that passed through the Senate, they made it to the Assembly, and they just petered out because the session was ending. There was no way it was going to make its way through the Assembly in time, and so and that's I think one of the reasons why we're on the ball with New York this year is because these bills are being introduced now, and they've got the time actually to make their way through the process. So yeah, sometimes we I think might find ourselves. This is one of those things about trying to keep things out of committee, is that we can sort of stall the process a bit. If we can run out the clock on a bill, they've got to start over. Some states have carryover, so that doesn't really work too well.
Hmm.
New Jersey has carryover. I can't remember if bills. I think bills introduced this year will carry over to next year. I have to double check.
I've got.
But some
I'll put the Statescape link up so people can take a look and see how in their state, um, how long the legislature's open and whether or not it will actually carry over. I'll put that link in. I've got it.
Just a little breaking news for any football fans in the room. Seattle just won.
so does that, are they going to the Super Bowl?
Yes. Sorry, you Packers guys. Maybe next year.
And going back to our
Who are
topic,
they playing?
that has nothing to do with Seattle winning. The other thing a lot of people don't understand is there's not really a path for committees, is there? That sometimes a bill, there are a few committees that most bills have to go through, but a lot of times a sponsor of a bill will send it to a committee where where they expect a favorable result. Because I mean, the whole idea is, let's boil this down to one of the facts is, if you're a legislator and you sponsor a bill, one of the things that you want to do is you want to be one of those people who has bills that go through and gets voted into law. I mean, that's kind of the measure of how effective a legislator is. His ideas go in front of the legislature and get approved into law. So no sponsor of a bill wants to put a bill through that is going to be defeated in committee and never make it to the floor.
Yeah, and I've seen bills that were like tax issues not even go through finance, which is weird.
Yeah. So today's civics lesson brought to you by Knock.
Alex help.
Alex helps a lot. So one of the things that Alex and I were talking about earlier, and we thought we'd talk a little bit about it today, was there's a lot of people who have also made some comments about, well, why don't we just write some good law or good bills and send them up? Well, there's a few problems with that theory, and let's start with some of the basic ideas behind it. Is first off how a bill gets written in the first place. A lot of people don't understand that though we hear about a sponsor of a bill. Sometimes they'll take language that's been submitted to them by other people and ideas that have been submitted by other people, and but they are the ones that are ultimately responsible for cobbling together that legislation. It has to be submitted by someone in the House or the Senate for it to actually go through. So you can't go write a bill on your computer and hand it to your legislator and think that, oh, he's going to look at it and go, oh, thanks for that bill. Here, let me put it through for you. It doesn't work that way. Doesn't quite work that way.
Yeah, there's some pretty state by state. It varies. Everybody has some formatting that it has to go through, and then of course when you're talking about uh, definitions and depending on where in the state code it falls, I mean that's why lawmakers have staffers. That you have to, even what I'm doing, just looking at these bills that are popping up, um, we have to kind of research where in the code these might cause other issues. So you redefine a term in one place, but it has ramifications throughout the statutes, and so I think part of the battle is actually writing. I don't know what the subject of a proposed bill, um, getting them part of the way there so that they're not starting from scratch. And this is where lobbyists come into play. We hear about industry writing laws all the time, and obviously, industry knows a lot about what their industry is, so they actually are in kind of the best position to propose legislation. Um, and But yeah, once it gets kind of out of their hands, then it's this is kind of the nightmare that we're talking about. And actually, I think a really good example of this was, I think it was Michigan, the tax bill in Michigan.
1088. Yep.
Yeah, that was originally somewhat small. We had suspected it was written by, I can't remember if that was an Altria, one of those Altria RJR partnerships, and it wasn't great for us, and so we opposed it. But at some point, it got out of their hands and became a much larger tax, and they withdrew their support, and it didn't pass because it got ridiculous. So
Well, that
you
particular
could
bill,
approach a lawmaker and say,
in that
"Go
particular bill,
ahead."
one of the things that happened that a lot of people aren't aware of was everybody knows the little tax that happened in North Carolina, and the idea behind that tax was let's create a weight-based tax, and Altria and Reynolds got behind it because they thought it would reduce the tax on snuff, on smokeless tobacco. But the problem is once Michigan legislators got it on their hands, that flipped around to a 90% tax on nicotine products. Boom, real quick, and they had to back away hard.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it might sound like a good idea to approach your lawmakers with a hey, let's exempt vapor products from taxes and Indoor Clean Air Act and stuff like that. I mean, there's that bill. There's was it the representative in Wisconsin that I think proposes that, has proposed it a couple of years in a row. Of course, fortunately, that hasn't spiraled out of control. But this is another issue that we were a little bit timid about when it came to proposing bans on sales to minors. There was a point at the beginning of the year where I think Greg and I were entertaining the idea of
we lose you?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, maybe we. I think we might have technical issue there with Alex. Hang on a
Don't
minute.
encourage them.
Okay, Alex, you kind of dropped out on us. Let's come back. Let's go back to where you said that you and Greg were looking at possibly some boilerplate style ideas for youth prevention.
Not boilerplate, but it was more of we were trying to engage members. It was actually kind of the idea was to give people something to do and bump up the people on CASA's email list. And it's something that we've been working on for several months now. It's something we discussed back in the fall. Was we need to have a membership drive. So this was a really simple thing. It was meaningful, and it was encourage lawmakers in the 9 states that don't have bans on sales to minors, encourage them to pass these bills. And someone else spoke up and said, no, you don't want to do that because, once you ask them if you put it in their head that they should start making laws, that's dangerous. They can very easily spiral out of control. So that project, we killed that pretty quickly. So yeah, it's you just don't want to ask them to do stuff. Not for this anyway. It's not a general rule for every making laws is beneficial, but as far as this is concerned, we really want to, I think, I kind of feel like just let them propose crazy things, this stuff that's coming out of Oregon, Washington, some of these tax bills that they're coming up with are just outrageous, and it might look good on paper, and they might be able to go back to their constituents and say, hey, I tried to exorcise the devil from our state, but it didn't work, and maybe that'll curry some votes next time around. But at the end of the day, the more ridiculous these bills get, the less likely they are to pass, I think. I think we saw that in New Jersey with Senator Vitale's tax bill. I actually honestly don't know if that's still a threat, but that went to committee, and a bunch, they bumped up the tax on smokeless, they bumped up the tax on cigarettes, I can't remember if they actually bumped up the tax on e-cigarettes, but it amounted to a very unsavory looking tax bill. And so after that committee hearing, the general feeling was it's too much. We're asking for too much. It's never going to go anywhere.
The other thing I think a lot of people don't realize is
it's
another thing I don't think that people realize is when they come in, if we go in, and even if there's a good bill, depending on how much effort we put behind it, it's a good bill at that moment, but it may not be a good bill after the next amendment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And we've seen
you
bills
broke up on
mutate.
me. I have to close some windows.
Okay.
We've seen bills mutate every year, and ones that we thought were horrible came back even more horrible. Ones that we thought were good came back and bit us on the ass and turned into something else. Just because you write a bill and you give it to somebody and they introduce it doesn't mean that it's done. And that's the problem with introducing something, because unless you're there to babysit your bill 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and make sure that everybody that you get to sponsor and everybody you get to support stay on topic, it's not going to work.
And that's a big scary thought when you. And then here's another thing that I see lately going on when people are talking about this is, even though if we have good input and the bill looks like it's the right thing, is when that bill does finally turn, then there's also this discussion of, oh, wait a minute, there's this bad bill now. Wait, wasn't so and so involved with that? So
Mm-hmm.
now it has a bad habit of tainting someone's reputation on, whether or not they think that's a good idea or not. Let's say a bill's going along and all of a sudden someone throws in a ban flavors amendment, and now all of a sudden you've got, well, wait a minute, Kasab backed that bill, and wait, it's got an amendment on it for banning flavors. Does that mean Kasab, and people will draw dots and people will make these illusions um, in what they're thinking and not really pay attention to what the original thought was. I mean, I can't believe that anyone would actually believe that at any time Kasai would stand behind any legislation that limits flavors at all. I mean, it's just kind of one of those basic tenets, you know. But the problem is if Kasab, and I use Kasab just because it's an absurd example here, okay? If Kasab was to go in full force and say, yes, we support this bill, it's the outcome that they're measured against, not the process. And I think that's a very, very important thing that we need to look at as we're going through and look at thinking about trying to modify legislation ourselves. Don't you think so, Alex?
I missed some of that. I was waiting for you to keep going. I seem
Oh,
to
okay.
have a crappy connection.
You want to refresh and come back?
What am I thinking about? I don't know how to do that. Do I hang up and just come
Yeah,
back?
just hit refresh on your browser.
I'll be back, guys.
Okay.
I don't know if
So,
he's having the weather I'm having. We're having an ice storm here, and he's just in New Jersey, so maybe he's having weather issues too.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's just raining here.
Is it? I have ice.
We got some ice this morning. But anyway, sorry.
Welcome
Okay.
back, Alex.
So to catch Alex back up, I said one of the things we got to worry about is like if someone like Kasai was to come out and support a bill, is then at that moment where that bill's going through, even if they had their support behind the minute that bill gets tagged with something odd on it, like for example a flavors ban or some crazy stuff like that. Now, they don't always put back the idea. Oh wait, Kasai would never support a flavor ban. All they look at is, oh, Kasai supported this bill, and oh, look how evil this bill is. So we really do end up in some very interesting situations when we back a certain bill because of the way it can be changed.
Yeah, I think at this point we're pretty good about keeping an eye on stuff, and I think the second that we found out about a change like that, we hopefully be able to, alert people and change tack. Um, but yeah, I certainly wouldn't want to be a party to introducing a bill and seeing it come out of the gate some sort of horrible monster.
Well, even the worst monsters don't come out as big monsters. They wait and they have to grow up and get their own life before they really become big monsters.
Teenagers, basically, right?
Exactly. So as we go forward on this legislative year, I'm going to throw another little twist into the mix here, and there's a lot of discussion about some of the bills that are going along. I know frequently we will say that a bill is attributed to Reynolds' influence, like what we saw in North Carolina, but we've got some interesting bills we're all looking at up in the Washington area right now, and we know for a fact that Reynolds and Altria aren't in favor of these bills. Okay, and this causes a lot of people some heartache because we're both working towards the same goal here. Should we be working together? Should we not be working together? Would we be? Yeah. Would we have an association with them if they go the same way anyway? This brings some interesting question because there are, again, going back to what Jeannie's blog that she put up about have we forgotten that we were smokers? There are a lot of people out there that have a very vehement stance against tobacco's involvement in our affairs, and I would like to think at this point we haven't lost our minds and decided that when those interests are of a like manner, that we don't shoot the messenger just because of the principle. So, Knock, I know you were thinking about this earlier this week, and you and I were having a discussion about it.
Well, we have to look at it this way. Those companies have a lot more money than we do.
Yep.
And on the rare occasion that they are not against us, because they've been in some of these state issues, they've been fine with these tax issues, and they've actually helped a tax bill get through. Do we not? Well, I wouldn't say ally ourselves, but do we not accept the help from them in the states where we do agree? Because we know that they're not always the most honorable when it comes to their intentions.
And one of the biggest
Well,
scary. Go ahead, Alex.
I might have missed a couple of bits of that, but I think from our perspective, well, our the standard disclaimer is we're here for the consumer. That's that, and sometimes, and this year we are likely to see instances where CASA's goals do not align with vendors or industry as a whole, and we will take a different position. So, our sentiment really is that sometimes we're going to align. Our goals will align with industry, be that coming from Altria and Reynolds to the largest juice manufacturer, whatever. And so, we appreciate the help. Thanks, guys. But I think it might be a bit of it might not be entirely accurate to say that we have overall the same goals as they do. They are major companies. They are looking to dominate the market. That's capitalism. That's the free market. You want to be the biggest dog, and that's just competition. So, really at the end of the day, they're doing what they can to benefit themselves. Sometimes it pays off to engage the consumer and rally us to their cause, but at the but we're gonna make that determination as an organization, whether or not it is actually in our interest to support something that might come from their camp. I guess it's my little spiel about aligning with industry. And of course, we have to be careful as well. We don't want to burn any bridges because we do receive, we get information. We have contacts in industry that help us stay informed, and those are connections that we don't want to burn. So it can be a very delicate process.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was bringing up because I think there's a number of people in this that are in the vapor industry right now, both consumer and vendor alike, that have an attitude of, and I'll just say it flat out, fuck big tobacco, you know, we're our own industry, we're the new kid on the block, we're going to own everything. That's kind of their attitude. But I guess the reality that people need to start thinking about is, in some ways, if you wanted to sum them up, if and I'm using the word if you wanted to sum them up as a company only after their own interest, and that's it. Okay, and if the success of this industry is in their best interest, then yeah, they're going to cooperate with it. But I don't. One of the things I think we do need to be careful of is we do not need to be standing there like the little frog with his chokehold around the heron's neck. Um, it's really kind of crazy to think that we need to start at that fighting point. We can use their assets, and we have been able to use their information. But it's going to be a very, very interesting point as we go forward. We need to keep in mind that we don't have any influence over their interest. They will move as they will move. And in the same respect, we have some larger. We're starting to get to the point where this little industry, this little group of people, is starting to get some industry leaders, some bigger juice vendors, some bigger hardware manufacturers. And you know what? Somewhere online, they have got to move in their own interest also.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of the things that I really hope people will realize, that as we grow, this leaves the idea of 10,000, 1,000, whatever number mom and pop shops into a group of industries that are working together, that are of different sizes. And we really need to be starting to look at that point as we go forward and learning how to do that correctly. Oh, we've got another hour. Maybe. They may throw us off. Or at least, well, some of us may be dropping off from time to time.
Sorry.
Well, we lost Robin now.
Yeah.
She ran away. So, one of the things that I've been noticing is a very, very adamant mentality amongst some of us that say that we should not plan for the inevitable regulation by the FDA, and that we are throwing in the towel because there are vendors out there that are, making educated guesses and trying to figure out ways to meet regulation on their feet instead of getting bowled over when they come through. And I really think that it's responsible for people in the industry to do just a little bit of research and try to figure out, there are some predictions that we're making that, there's going to be, certain labeling standards that are going to come down. There's going to be certain testing standards that are going to be coming down. And I saw somewhere, I think it was on the CASA Facebook group, a vendor had recently sent out letters to their customers saying that they would no longer be offering custom juice blends to their customers because they expect that will be something that down the line they will not be able to offer, and they are applying for membership to a juice manufacturing conglomerate association or whatever, and that's one of the things that is going to be required of them. And I saw immediately a lot of venom and a lot of people, criticizing them for taking what I would consider to be an intelligent choice. We know for a fact that they are going to require product licensing, which means that your custom juice blend unless it's a very popular custom juice blend that they sell a lot of, is not going to be available because they're not going to pay the application fee to get it approved. And they can only sell products that they have approval for. We already know that. So I don't
You're being
understand
very
why.
diplomatic on this. I wouldn't have been nearly as diplomatic. I'm glad you did.
Well, I don't.
We know more than that, actually. I mean, before you even get the option of making your custom juice blend, your standard e-liquid blend is likely to be off the market as well. But I agree with you. I think that industry people who are interested in preserving their business should really be looking at what it's going to take for them to meet FDA approval. There's some data out there. We have enough really to speculate to give you kind of a back of the envelope figure of what it's going to cost for one flavor to make it onto the market in various nicotine strengths, and for one device to make it on the market. It's going to cost millions of dollars. But for a company to actually do the research and work with experts and come up with some sort of formal proposal that to actually see how much it's going to cost them. And to be honest, I think that there's probably some missing information out there from the FDA to kind of fill in some of those blanks. But to come up with a more accurate estimate of what it would cost to put one flavor on the market, and then be able to submit that and say, you really expect us to be able to pay for this, to submit that to the Office of Management and Budget, to OIRA, Office of Regulatory something, I can't remember what it means, to be able to submit that data to those offices and say, with a lot more certainty, you are going to destroy the industry and you're killing people. That's something that we need. So you're right. Absolutely, I think the industry needs to step up and start doing some research in order to preserve their businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things is, you and I both have seen a lot of documentation, Alex, on that number, and a lot of speculation because there is missing information. We can agree that yes, there is missing information, but there are some hard and proven issues that if you look at any industry, whether or not it's regulated or not, and I want to bring that point up for a moment. Okay, any industry, whether or not it's regulated or not, should be using the practice of good manufacturing practices. Doesn't matter whether it's a regulated industry or not.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of those, we don't even have to go into the weeds to find out what the FDA rule book is. Because, as has been pointed out to me, even if you worked in publishing and or creating a magazine, or if you made soap, if you were a fast food chain, or you're a juice company, there should be good manufacturing processes in place. And our industry, and I'm going to just be completely honest here, is way behind the curve on that. Just on that point alone.
Mm-hmm.
So
we still have people making e-liquid in their shops.
we have and don't get me wrong, is if they could get away with it, they'd be mixing it in vape mix.
Mm-hmm.
They would be.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen some pretty well set up shops that have good mixing rooms on site, but they were only good. I've seen some really bad ones too, where they mix it right on the glass counter, right in front of you, and they're not wearing gloves. They're not, we need good manufacturing standards just to guarantee some sort of quality and safety control. And at
And
least
with the
accountability when they do mess up. Because,
and let's face
obviously.
it, at this point, the first question, and I you and I have talked about this over and over as a group. Actually, all of us have talked over as a group. Is the first question is, does the FDA have the right? Are they deemed in control of it? And once they are, the first thing they're going to ask for is, what processes are you using? That's before anything else happens.
Wait a second. Is the FDA Does the FDA have authority over manufacturing standards? Is that the
No,
question?
no. I said the question that's in play right now, with the deeming, they have made a request to say that they are responsible, that they have the cognizance
Okay.
authority over it. Once that decision's been made, there's still no rules. That's all still to come.
Well, um, they've promulgated the rule which brings electronic cigarettes under their authority.
Hmm.
Just by bringing it under their authority, even before they've gotten to actually establishing manufacturing practices, labeling, and so on. Actually, I mean, labeling, uh, wording on labels is part of the proposed rule. Um, they've already taken 99% of the products off the market after 2 years.
After two
So
years,
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about as of day one, not 2 years.
Yeah,
The
right.
first question,
What happens after day one?
what happens after day one? The first question at that point is, what processes are even being used to
The legal
determine if they
system is being
even meet
used.
any criteria.
The,
You see what I'm saying? And if those processes aren't written down, if those processes don't exist, what are you submitting? Nothing. You're not in business at that point. So this is the point where when a vendor steps forward and says that they're trying to standardize their juice lines so that they can at least document what the hell they're doing, the consumer response should not be, I'm going away from these people because, oh God, they've fallen to prey to that idea of regulation. That's insanity on the consumer's part.
well, actually, I would also argue, not necessarily a counterpoint, but it's just as much insanity on the FDA's part. This is the inevitable. This is one of the inevitable outcomes of this regulation is the black market.
Yep.
So and it's unfortunate from an advocacy standpoint because we do have, I'm sure thousands of people out there who we really could use their voice, but instead they have, adopted the well, it doesn't matter anyway because I can still get my stuff. And
But we have to keep in mind, okay, for example, Washington State, they have an asinine bill. We hope that the chances that that bill gets through is very low. But if that were to happen, and that bill does go through, and Washington State gets to change nicotine to a Schedule 3, there is no DIY in Washington State anymore. If you get caught, it is a felony to possess nicotine without the proper documentation. So now not only do we have to worry about FDA, but we also have to worry about all these little state areas, these little states making up their own rules and regulations that they fully have the ability to do because it's more harsh and restrictive than the federal. So the black market argument, disappears in these little fiefdoms around the United States that if they decide to do it in a similar way. The zero nic vapors get off okay, but the guys that are actually using vaping to get off cigarettes and need the nicotine, they're screwed.
Yeah, well, again, outright prohibition hasn't worked out well for any other substance, so it's still, it's just that vaping's not going to be as visible as it was.
Well, and we get lumped in with the drug war.
The truly die hard.
So why a
Yeah,
class
the
3?
drug war is
Because
the
of the
drug war.
addiction?
I mean, marijuana has been illegal for decades.
Class 3 because of the addiction? Is that why? Because, I mean, class 3, really?
Yep, that's what they're saying.
Wow. That's
So
like
what other drugs are Schedule 3?
Oxycontin, morphine. We're talking high level stuff here. Oxycontin and morphine. That's why I'm like so surprised.
Yeah.
We're talking the
Insane.
fentanyl patches, the stuff that's like way up there. That's why I'm so shocked. I mean, if they're going to do anything and there's a potential for abuse or addiction and they feel like they have to classify it, make it a 2 where the Ativan and the Xanax are. But it's 3, really, with the morphine?
Alex,
And
you
we're
got
not
your
saying
war on
this-
drugs last week, so you don't get it this week.
We're not saying that this is going to happen in Washington or
No,
in
I know.
Oregon, or whatever.
Theoretical.
But,
Without it anyway.
this is what we're talking about, when it comes to these. We've talked about it last week, where the states are coming up with their own laws, and then we're going to have, all sorts of jurisdictional issues and cross-state line issues because what's legal in one state is not legal in another state. So yeah, it's a can of worms.
It's ridiculous.
I don't even remember what we used to get here, but it's an interesting discussion.
I derailed it. I'm so proud.
We were talking about vendors.
Yeah,
being
vendors' responsibilities. That was it.
and-
That was it. Okay.
and trying to figure out what they need to survive FDA regulations, which
Well-
I think is potentially a valuable exercise for the purposes of a lawsuit. But at this point, I don't think anybody should be operating under the illusion that I seriously, I don't believe that the largest, most profitable e-liquid manufacturer in the country, or in the world for that matter, is going to survive FDA regulations as they are currently written. So, again, go through the exercise, absolutely. Make the announcements, scare the pants off of people. It needs to happen. But as far as I'm concerned, from what I understand, which admittedly is somewhat limited, I would say that you're gearing up for lawsuits. You're not necessarily gearing up to survive the regulatory process.
Well, and that's the other thing. You mentioned lawsuits. I always hear everybody say, well, there's going to be lawsuits and it's going to be in the courts for a long time before the FDA ever do get to take control. Somebody's got to pay for those lawsuits.
Yep.
And a giant federal lawsuit against the FDA is going to be very, very, very expensive.
Yep.
Well, we already know from the evidence, from what we know about the Cetera decision, just that alone was an extremely expensive lawsuit that has already happened concerning our industry.
And the
Millions
original
of dollars
people.
was spent.
Much did that cost, by the way?
I heard
Is
that.
that
I've
millions?
heard that. And I've heard
but-
figures over 10 million.
Well, the company that started that lawsuit actually dropped out of the lawsuit because they went under.
Wow.
Cetera signed. Cetera were not the original people that filed that lawsuit.
Yep.
They came on later, and Smoking Everywhere, they disappeared
Mhm.
because they couldn't continue.
Stefan, was that Cetera's 2 million? Not.
Smoking Everywhere's.
not including the money that was spent from smoking everywhere. And there was actually there were two other people in the original lawsuit too. That was just their part. That's what I thought. Yeah. And for those of you who may be trying to figure out who Satera is, that is Enjoy. So, any words about them not participating in advocacy with a $2 million price tag right up front is pretty big. Just saying.
Just saying.
And the people that have the money, they're not going to fight it because they got the money. They'll just pay the application fees.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Ray Story burned about the same with smoking everywhere, so that's $5 to $6 million. So $5 to $6 million just to get that lawsuit through.
Wow.
Yeah, anybody got that laying around?
No.
Right? Seriously.
Casada doesn't have that in the bank? Because
And Mr.
I know the militia,
Bud,
doesn't.
Bud, I'm just going to throw a very interesting little dab at what you're saying there. Big Tobacco has shown in the late 90s that they'll, in the late 90s lawsuit debacle, that they'll fight tooth and nail to protect their gold mine. Yeah. And if vaping is the gold mine that is on the table, which is cheaper? Letting the government have it and get rid of it, or fighting it? Think about it.
I think Bruno sunk all of his assets into Enjoy. I don't know that he has any more money laying around.
Oh yeah, Stefan, I forgot about that. So, well, we went all over the place with that one. Let's go back to the original thought. So, consumers making commentary about businesses trying to move themselves towards what they feel may be their only saving point by selling out to the idea of regulation. Well, I'll tell you what I think is consumers that would like to come out against that. I think they need to quit using the product now because you don't believe in it. Bottom line, go back smoking. I don't care. I'll be that. I'll be that brutal. Okay.
Who's that guy?
I'm not known for selling sunshine. So there we go. If a consumer can't stand behind a vendor that's making a decision for them that is in the right direction, we're going right back to the same bullshit that happened when Mount Baker Vapor made their decision to pull cinnamon buns off because a test came out that showed that cinnamon might be dangerous. And for a consumer to scorn a vendor for trying to make a good decision to protect their health, you're an idiot if you're that consumer. Bottom line, you're an idiot. So
I mean, let's keep in mind these guys want to continue to offer products to you in the future, and part of that may be them having, I've seen a couple other juice companies, they started paring down their flavor lists, getting ready so that they know that they will be able to offer their most popular products so that they can remain in business. So they're doing everything they can do to keep food on their plates as well as keep their business doors open in the future. And, if that means that they have to make a decision for their business that may end up keeping their doors open and being able to offer you product in the future, there's no reason for everybody to pile on and tell them that they're idiots or that they're rolling over or that they should go. Well, there were some very choice comments on that thread. So.
And by the way, that company's Virgin Vapor, and you know what? I'm not going to pussyfoot around it. If they're stepping up and doing the right thing, bravo, way to go.
I told people vendors months ago, now is the time to start, doing simple testing on your juices now, because at some point you're going to have some science to submit with your application. And instead of waiting until the last minute, you could be doing two flavors a month, have them tested, so that when it comes time, you have some sort of paperwork, because we don't know exactly what they're going to want it to be tested for. So but at least you've made an effort.
And it reminds me
I
of some of the
think
wording.
I,
Go ahead, Alex.
I was going to say, I think rather than trying to anticipate what the FDA wants, I think there's a general sense of, what I would like to see, and maybe to offer up a general rule is really at the end of the day, we're talking about consumer protection and offering a good quality, a high quality product that you can stand behind. And that's, I think, that spirit of personal responsibility, corporate responsibility. I think that's what we're advocating for here. One of the things, without getting too specific, people recall. There's probably been more than one instance of this, but there have been folks that have tried to anticipate the science that the FDA will be requiring, and have been trying to perform those studies. And this is beyond the quality of your e-liquid. This is, adult usage, appealing to teens, efficacy, population type level survey type stuff. Even those efforts have been met with questions and reluctance from industry to fund those studies, because, again, people don't really know what the FDA is going to be looking for, and to sink a ton of money into that, I think people see that as a kind of a risky investment. You don't know if that's actually going to pan out. So rather than get bogged down in trying to anticipate and front load this with pre-existing studies, really I think it's about initiating that in the spirit of producing a good quality product. There are some simple things like the batch testing and labeling, and having your stuff manufactured in a credible lab that meets certain standards. Those things I think are just the bare minimum type of stuff. And I don't really follow the industry as closely, I think, as some of you guys do, but it sounds to me like there are probably some large manufacturers out there that aren't doing some of that basic stuff, and that's, it's something like that I think will eventually separate the wheat from the chaff. You have manufacturers out there that are already engaged in the process. They may not know everything, but at least they're working in that direction. Just my 2 cents.
Well, when you look at it through our history, when we started out, and I'll even go back to one of the big hot button topics for last year, the diketones. Um, the fact that their presence in the juice is there or not, you know. And at this point, there's some very serious things that we need to be aware of. Is we know that exposure to those has caused in another industry some harm. We do know that. Okay, there's evidence that proves that, that we've seen. We haven't seen it in our industry yet. For someone to make a decision at this point that maybe because of what evidence is there, and this is the key thing that I want to bring forward. What evidence is there for a company to make a decision to try to limit the possibility of going down that road in our industry is at least an educated and prudent gesture. You know,
Mm-hmm.
to sit back and think that there will be nothing in this product that will ever be determined to be harmful is folly.
Yeah.
So we do have to start looking. We do have to start educating ourselves and bringing it up. And here's kind of the funny thing is, and I know some people will look at me with a very stern look over this one, but you know, the people at the ALA, what's in the liquid? Well, we tell you what's in the liquid, and then we start doing testing and we start asking the same question: what's in the liquid now? And this is going to be an ongoing process.
Mm-hmm.
Every product that is out there for the consumer now is continually tested to make sure that it is the safest product that can be offered. We should expect no different. Oh, I'm gonna grab this comment and throw a little stab at it right quick. Regardless of what they say is unhealthy about e-juice, it will never come close to cigarettes. Guess what? I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. I don't fucking care. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. I don't care how it compares to a cigarette anymore. I'm a vapor.
Well, but that is a very crucial part of our arguments. Let's put it that way.
Well, and
that statement standing alone doesn't actually achieve much, but
the reduced harm aspect, that's one of the things that is in the application process is we have to prove it. That's one of the requirements of the application process.
And they've managed to kind of twist that reality, the fact that we know that these products are less harmful, that they have managed to twist that into, if anybody's listening to Mitch Zeller talk about this, it turns into a very long-winded kind of, whenever somebody starts throwing out numbers and scenarios, it gets really bogged down, and there's that whole thing of we need to study these things to make sure that, so let's just say that if adult smokers are successfully switching to these products and using them exclusively, there's no doubt that's a good thing. That's a paraphrase of a quote from Mitch Zeller. He's actually said that in front of Congress people. But then it turns into this whole thing of, but if we find that adults are using these products and continuing to smoke, then that's not necessarily a good thing, which is, I will say, that's bullshit. The whole dual-use conversation is absolute bullshit. If you are using these products and you reduce your cigarette consumption, that is, at the very least, a move in a healthier direction.
Agreed.
So that no one should be writing off dual users. I was a dual user for many years using nicotine gum, and I would probably get a pat on the back from alphabet people saying, "Oh yeah, great, you're moving in the right direction." But if I do that with any other product, I'm an evil dual user. So let's nip that conversation in the bud right now. If you're a dual user, great, you're doing it right. You are on your way, or you have reduced your cigarette consumption, and that's fantastic. And I'm sure that you already noticed some sort of difference in your quality of life. So that's kind of where they twist this around. And then, of course, the other thing that they throw on there is that if these products are enticing children to start a lifelong, just dark, horrible back alley nicotine addiction, then that's bad.
No. There was an article that said that vaping was a gateway to cocaine.
Right, that too. So yeah, if you use these products, suddenly the magical powers of nicotine are unleashed, and you will be trading sexual favors in a park for your next hit of cocaine or heroin.
Wow.
And of course, along the way, you're going to start smoking cigarettes, which is just even worse.
Which are also class 3 drugs, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
So it's.
Wow. Just wow. Any cigarette you don't smoke is a win, I think.
Yeah, and I'll say something else here, and this is a really touchy subject, so I'm going to be very delicate about it. We actually have science emerging now. We know this from testing on nicotine replacement therapies. The way that we're consuming nicotine with these products, it's actually showing less addiction liability. So nobody really wants to come out and talk about it, but if kids are initiating on these products, that's worlds better than them starting on cigarettes, because they are less likely, probably. This is the hypothesis that someone needs to test. Those kids are less likely to continue using nicotine down the line. So put that in your pipe and smoke it, or vape it, whatever the hell you want to do with it.
Vape it.
Put that in your pipe and dual use it.
Put that in your mod.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got Alex's blood pressure up today, just a little.
Just a little bit.
The coffee finally kicked in.
So I have to just throw this in there. I have a friend who goes to AA meetings, and I was talking to him the other day, and he was telling me that like a lot of the people that were in the meetings lately were up in arms about all the flavored vodka, because to them it's marketing to children, and they take addiction and alcoholism very, very seriously. And some of them have even written to to senators, and they never get anything back, and nobody seems to be very interested in addressing that issue, even though some people think they're marketing to children. And I just thought that was interesting.
Let me tell you one of the more interesting responses I've ever heard to that comment, and I will tell you exactly where it happened. It was in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which you are going to to at the end of February.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a public health advocate that was in front of the room, who was a part of. She was the one who was the initiator for the protection of the kids from nicotine from tobacco control. And that particular question was addressed to her about, well, what is your opinion of the flavored vodkas and things like that? Do you feel that they're also marketing to children? And her exact quote was, "That's a job for another agency."
Wow. Wow, that's crazy. I'm a fan of vodka-flavored vodka, but I still think that's an issue with all. I mean, there's cotton candy, and I mean, I don't know if you've ever looked at it. There's caramel flavored. There's like cinnamon buns. There's all kinds of flavors that I think would be very attractive
Root beer and
to
Fruit
kids.
Loops. Anyway.
Yep. Yep.
I think that this flavored alcohol thing really has potentially has a tendency to kind of go off the rails a little bit here. We're not looking to demonize the alcohol industry here.
No.
It is more of the point being that adults don't lose their love of flavors experience when they turn 18.
Right.
It's not fair, and so it's an example of I gotta say, I spent some time in the rooms of AA. I'm a recovering alcoholic myself. And there is sort of a recovering alcoholic stereotype I really don't want to feed into, but it sounds like perhaps that might be something that you're experiencing. It's kind of like dealing with an ex-smoker, someone that quit cold turkey, and they feel like, well, if I did it, everybody can do it, and they get this kind of holier than thou attitude. And there are tons of people out there that they manage to give up. They manage to recover from substance abuse or in any form, and feel that it's they need a cause to define their lives, and that kind of sounds like what's going on a little bit there. And I feel that in some cases, in those instances, a lot of the benefits of AA have fallen on deaf ears for those people. One of those things is, there's a lot of sober people that could benefit from a 12-step program. Let's just leave it at that.
I
Agreed.
think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of people who can benefit from a 12-ounce program. But anyway, that's my point.
Wow.
And it would probably be well off to do some soul searching prior to that 12-ounce program.
Well, I patronize my flavors both in the alcohol industry and in the vaping industry, and I don't plan on changing either. Um, okay, so we've gone from flavor bashing to vendor bashing to we have about 20 minutes left.
We managed to fill out the 2 hours. This is
We did.
pretty good for a group of people that thought we didn't have any content.
Yeah, we came into the show today with a serious complex of lack of content, but as usual, we end up towards the end of the show going, "Oh shit, we got there." Um, let's see, who can I put on the spot here? Oh, we'll wait and let Robin take her drink, and then I'll put her on the spot. We've
I
got
knew you were going to pick me. What?
a lot of stuff coming up in the next few weeks. Um, with things that are going on with some vendor meetings and stuff like that, and I'm going to let Robin let everybody know what major events we are aware of that we'll be participating in.
At least at this point in time,
At
because
this
there's a
point
lot
in
of stuff coming too, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to start with January 23rd, which is this Friday. This is for vendors only, though. This is just a vendor meeting. And we will be at the Embassy Suites in Linwood, Washington, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. But again, it's just a vendor meeting. It's not a regular meet or anything. On the January 31st, isn't it, Joe? I thought the 30th, but I think it's the 31st, the thing that you're
31st,
going
yeah.
to. The 31st, and that's the Western Michigan Vape Fest. And that's at the Deltaplex Arena. Just a one-day event there also.
Grand Rapids, Michigan.
In Grand Rapids, Michigan. February 28th to March 1st, we will be in Tampa. Joe will be in Tampa at VCC Tampa, and that's at the Tampa Convention Center. So, also
we'll be there too.
well, yeah, I
Alex
won't be.
will be
I'll
there
be in Fort Wayne. February 28th, just a one-day event in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's called Vape in the Fort, and that is at the Fort Wayne, I can't even read what I wrote, Fort Wayne Hotel. It's just a one-day, like I said, it's 11 a.m. till 7 p.m. I'll be there with Fred. And then the following week, March 6th and 7th, is Vape Fest. That's in Las Vegas at the Flamingo Hotel, and all but one of us will be there. So that's cool. If you guys can come meet us. And then on March 13th, 14th, and 15th, there's Vape Blast. That's in Dallas. The 13th is just business to business, open to the rest of you guys on the 14th and 15th, and that's at Fort Worth Convention Center. On March 20th and 21st is Vaper Slam in North Carolina. That's in Winston-Salem, and that's at the Benton Convention Center. And lastly, at least at this point in time, April 17th and 18th is Bash, and that's at the Pheasant Run Resort, and that's in St. Charles, Illinois. And that's what I got so far.
And there's also there was an invitation given to us to go back to Phoenix.
Yeah,
for
that's in
Vapor
October,
Dynasty
so I
Expo
didn't-
in October.
Yeah, October. So I didn't know
No
that you wanted me
details
to
yet
mention
on
that
that
since
one.
it's so far off. Yeah. But that's what I got, yeah.
Oh, and then sometime in June there's going to be Vape Expo. We don't know what it is.
Right. We don't have a date yet, do we?
I don't remember it. So just to give you guys an idea of some of the places that we'll be there working with vendors and talking with individuals. So if you want to come meet us in person and talk to us, it'd be great to see you there. And
Please
if you
do.
happen to be down in the Tampa area, I know that there's going to be a very big advocacy meeting associated with VCC Tampa. People from Vista will be there, Casal will be there, Savada will be there. Who am I missing? Alex?
AVA? Will AVA be there?
I'm pretty sure
I
Greg
would
will be
think
there.
that, yeah, Greg will be there. I don't know if he's confirmed yet, but I would assume he's at all the other VCC events.
Yeah.
Paul Blair will be there, ATR.
Yep.
I would assume that maybe in the Tennessee Smoke Free Association, or I know Florida has their own Smoke Free
Actually,
Association as
I
well.
think there's going to be representatives from Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida smoke-free associations there. So that
That would make
really,
sense.
really good time to meet those state agencies if you haven't had a chance yet and you're a vendor in those areas.
So yeah, I would say that Kevin Skipper is doing a phenomenal job with putting advocacy front and center at VCC, and anybody that's interested in getting more involved, or just getting some updates and insight into what we do, what you can do, attending the VCC events is definitely a place to go.
So yeah, I want
I
to
know
make
that
sure
I know that sounded like a plug, but it's not. Just
and
so
that
that I'm
advertisement was
on
paid
the
for by
level.
Alex. We won't. So we'll get you off the hook with saying any bad words, but Julie. But now we've got you pimping events, so that'll probably get you in trouble too.
You might as well just say fuck now.
Might as well just get it out of the way.
Nice. There it is. I love that.
And for those of you, if you haven't paid attention, could you get that blog entry, the ATR blog entry? Put it in the chats, please.
You want that?
Yep, yep. If you haven't had a chance, please take a look at the blog entry that we put up about the fundraising drive that we've got in cooperation with ATR. What this will do is this helps this group who has a very, very keen interest in keeping taxes low throughout the United States. Those guys are working with us through this year, being that we're facing so many tax issues and we've become kind of a target industry. And the threshold we're looking at here is, in order to fund them, we're looking to collect $1,000 a state. It's really simple. So it's not a whole lot of money. Talk to your vendors, get them aware of this, share this blog with them so they know that we've got other people on our side. This is one of the first times that we're reaching outside of the vaping community to a group of people who are on the same page with us. And this is not the last time you're going to see it. As we go through, we're going to continue to build coalitions with those individuals that are active in the political front and with ideologies that align with what we're doing. So, sure, Stefan, I can do that. And Stefan, if you got any events that you want to put for the West Coast out there, just drop them in chat and we'll get information out about them too. So we've got about 10 minutes left. I just want to remind everybody, a lot of people are sometimes confused about what it is that the militia does. And I want to take a couple of minutes and catch everybody up, because I think a lot of people have misunderstood what we try to do on a constant basis. And the bottom line is we try to make an information conduit for anybody that is out there. Stefan, do you want to come on right quick and talk about that? If you do, let me get Skype up right quick.
You got him up on Skype? I was going to say I'll send it to him on Facebook or something.
Let me get that.
I don't have him on Skype.
You just want to send him the hangout?
Yeah, send him the hangout. But one of the things that we try to do is we try to be an information conduit for anything that's going on, to get people informed. Look, it's an 8-member board. the effectiveness of thinking of one of the eight of us can show up at a even at a state level to be able to testify for you. That's really not what we're trying to do. We're trying to get people informed as best we can, get you the tools that you need, and get you in touch with other agencies that can help you out in the best way that they can. And I think a lot of people have misunderstood that as we've gone along. I think that the fact that we reach out to so many different agencies and try to provide that conduit is really what we're the best at doing. And I appreciate everybody taking their time and listening to what we have to say every week, both via our radio show. Give me about a 2-minute commercial here on the radio show, Doc.
Well, the Vaping Militia Radio, we broadcast on Friday nights at 10 p.m. my time, which is, 11 p.m. Eastern.
Yep.
For Robin. We do a dissection of news articles that are whatever the most recent news articles that we can find. We talk about issues that are possibly damaging to us that are coming up. Sometimes we'll do a theme show and we'll talk about things that we see people doing wrong. We talk about things that are people doing right. And one of the things that we do every week is recently we've started this Ass Hat of the Week award, and we've given that to politicians. We gave it to Chuck Norris because there is a lot of misinformation out there, and we try to point out to the people that are either using the worst possible information or actually, announcing some of the worst possible information that's a little BS. Last weekend, or Friday night, we gave it to a couple high school kids because they were playing with their mod in their high school gym, and then something happened, battery vented or whatever, and caused an explosion. And then the bomb squad had to be brought out, and the school had to be evacuated because they didn't know what it was. And so, yeah, it's a good show. We have a good time doing it. We like to kind of educate when we can and ridicule when we can, and it's very, very enjoyable show.
And now we've got Stefan Didak. He's helped us out a lot with the West Coast. And go ahead and unmute, Stefan.
There we go.
How you doing?
Hi, guys.
What's going on the West Coast?
What's going on the West Coast? Well, we're having a vendor meeting on the 12th of February, and we've only got pretty much 2 agenda items. One is dealing with the whole Kerbit stuff, which we'll talk about after the show because there's way too much to explain at this point. Second thing is we're in the final round of funding our lobbyist because at this point, I don't think me and Sally have it in us to keep fighting the state battles without professional help. So one of the things we're pushing for with both the NorCal and the SoCal chapters is funding for the lobbyists and get that thing going and get that pressure off of us. The Kerbit thing, on the other hand, much more interesting because we're fighting 2 battles now. We're fighting the state battles, and we're fighting an influence over public opinion. And you know what? Both are equally very important, but the influence over public opinion hits me way harder because a lobbyist is mostly a vendor issue. It's an industry issue, and we can figure that out. The influence over public opinion is one that we cannot stand for, and given that Clarence has said that he will replicate this throughout the whole of California and all the other states, basically means we have to do something about it, and a plan is in the works, and we've got really good support. We've got a good support base, and I want to get everyone else involved because we're pretty close to forming the management team to start doing this.
Good, good, good,
Cool.
good.
That's pretty much it.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you could join us, Stefan. Last final comments, Robin. Do you have anything?
No, not really. Thank you, though.
Knock, did we forget anything?
Nothing important. Like I said, everybody, sit 5 minutes at your computer, type out your vape story, use the link on the Pens Out blog, find out who your representatives are, and just send them a letter telling them how vaping has affected you, and ask them to email you back with their support or what their opinions are on vaping, and then send it to me.
Alex, anything?
By standard CASA roundup, there are current calls to action available on our site and more to come.
Stefan, since you're here, do you have any closing comments that you want to add besides, by the way, that Kerbit thing was awesome, and hopefully we can get you in sometime in the next week to talk about that in a little more detail?
Sure. Next week would probably be fine.
Knock? You have a guest next week, so you get to have a show. As a programming note, Robin and I will be in Washington next weekend. Knock's going to be running the show, and apparently he's going to have a special guest, Stefan.
Woo!
Yay! Thank you.
And then with that, and I do want to thank everybody for joining us. Kind of as the last thing I want to remind you, man, if you guys, I really do appreciate all the time that everybody spends watching us on Sunday. Do me a favor, reach out to somebody that's not active, tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, I could use your help. Teach them how to be as active as you are. Might be someone who's actually a vapor, it might just be someone who cares about you. But we need to start spreading the word. If we don't do it, ain't nobody else gonna. It's real simple. I do appreciate everybody joining us today. We're going to be signing off just a tad early, so thanks a lot.